Get started with our recitation.
Dumbo, Junden, the Shin, Jebo, Rajumbo, Yandabo,
Zobe, Sanye,
Ribo,
Ribo,
Don,
Don,
Shotu,
Shotu,
Deba,
Deba,
Deva,
Deva,
Shebo,
Sheba,
Jiden,
Jidin,
Kimba,
Kimba,
Jibu,
Jibu,
Kalu,
Kalu, Yuru,
Jubo, Lana,
Lana,
Meba,
Meba,
Lana,
Lada,
Mena,
Mena,
Jidumbo,
Sange,
Sanjim,
Chumdin,
Bejewa,
Begewa,
Shagya,
Shagya,
Tuba,
Tuba,
Jaza, Mochu,
Jaza,
Duja,
Jebo, Dumba, Jumdin, Shaba,
Shebo,
Tajumba,
Rajumbo,
Yanda, Varzobe, Reba,
Rebo don
Dan,
shabu
Shasu,
demba
Demba,
dewa
Devar,
sheba
Shaba,
jide
Jidin,
jamba
Gimba,
jebu
Givu,
kalu
Kalu,
juba
Juba,
lana
Lana,
meba
Meba,
lada
Lada,
mena
Menangi,
jideba
Tumba,
sanje
Sangi,
chonde
Jumdin,
pejewa shagya tuba la chaze lo
Chon,
chudu ja
Gyalde,
she Ajo den de de shin sheba
Jumba,
rajumba
Yanda,
yanda
Varzobe, Sangi,
Rebo don shasu demba dewa
Devar,
sheba
Shaba,
jide
Jidin, Gimba,
jeba jebu
Givu,
Kalu juba
Givu,
lana
Lana,
meba
Meba,
lana mena je
Inange
jamba
damba
sanje
zange
chonde
chonde se
Peje
bege
wa
wa
shagya
shagya
tuba
tuba
la
la
jaze
jaza
Chudu
chudu
jaze
jaze
De gani
gani
zo
zo
jedan
gyodan
de
se
Sajen
sajen
de
de
la
la
gomba
gomba
de
de
morne
morne
Ngane
ngane
je
je
de
de
de na
na
cho
jo
je
je
zo
zon
de
de
ze
de
je
ge
wa
ba
je
gyo
la
la
cha
cha
Nanda
nanda
kuma
kuma jo
chudu
de
su
zon wa
zo Yi
yi
je
je
kya
gya
zo
za
se
se
ge
ge
lumbu
lumbo
Chaba
Chaba
je
jide
de su na
suna
la me
lame
wa
wo
Kumbu
kumbu
chu yi
chunyi
kya la
gyala
cha
jala
Se jo
ba
dhamma je me
jime
da
da
ve sa
visa
se
se
do
don
cha wa
rawa
ge la
gyala
cha
jala
Tende
Tunda
je na
kyunda
si ba
siva
su na
suna
ji
ji
Nyame
nyame
kinji
kinchi
je la
gyala
cha
jala
Gombo
Gombo
tu je
tuje
jembe ma
chidemba
tam je
tamche
kembe
kimbe
tu
tumbo
mo Sona
Tona
yende
yenden
ga do
gyalda
je
jin
te
de
jin
jin
she la
shela
cha
shal tu
Da be be
be
ja
dan
je
jagwa
ba
ye we do de sing
Che
che
do
de
de
dan
lam
dan
che
je
ju
ge
ba
ba
shi
shi
ju che la
la
cha
cha
Do ne do ne la yang de la ba da la ga de Che je da ba yin de de gin de la yang cha De ba che ya mi cha shin ge wa ku shin so ba re ge Rang ge se ne yong se de te ne sa ge de ba yi Karma rabri marme dang gyu ma se ba chu ur dang Milan lo dang jin da bu du ji tu nan di da dang So nan di tam chi si ba yi go ban so ni gyun gyun ga du de ga dan na dan chi vi lab chu be si bi so le zhu wa zhu wer zhu
Page 3. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When a supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean. To you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path of sublime pure reality, To that dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits, my sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death.
Baba Gujo Soma Java Lo Dege Dage Toba Vite Na Joden Kyo Chago Bumbo Rela Gelon Ji Gende Chembo Da Chanju Sembe Gende Chembo Da Kawa Jedu Jode De Je Chonde De Samo Na Wa Shi Jawi Shige Nam Rangi Tenge Tela Nyumbur Shusu Ya De Se Chanju Zembo Sembo Baba Jerez Wanju Sherage Varudo Chimba Samo Cheba Nila Nambara Kumbu Ngabo Deda Layan Ranjige Tombara Nambara Tao Tene Sange Gitu Sedan Demba Sharibu Chanju Semba Semba Jembu Baba Jerez Wanju Tige Jemeso Rije Bu Kala Sherage Varudo Chimba Samo Cheba Cheba Doba De Chidar Labarcha Tige Jemeba Chanju Semba Semba Jembo Baba Jerez Wanju Ki Sedan Demba Jareda De Bula Tige Jemeso Sharibu Rije Bu Mo Kala Sherage Varudo Chimba Samo Cheba Cheba Doba De Didara Nambara Tawara Shate Kumbo Ngabo Deda Layan Ranjige Tombar Nambar Yandaba Jesu Tao Zu Tomba O Tomba Ni Zuzo Zule Tomba Ni Shemayin Tomba Ni Lekyan Zu Shemayin No Deshin Du Sorwa Dan Du Shedan Du Shedan Nambar Shepa Nam Tomba O Sharibo Deda Chudanje Tomba Nide Sini Meba Mageba Magaba Jima Meba Jima Dan Tewa Tewa Meba Gangwa Meba O Sharibo Deda Wena Tomba Nila Zume Sorwa Me Dujime Dujime Nambar Sheba Me Mime Nawa Me Name Chime Lume Yime Zume Chame Chime Rome Regjame Chume Do Mige Kame Bane Yige Kame Yige Nambara Shebe Kange Bardu Yame So Mariba Me Mariba Seba Me Gashi Me Gashi Sebe Bardu Yame Do Dejindu Dongwa Wadon Kunju Wadon Goba Dan Lame Yeshi Me Toba Me Matoba Yame Do Shari Tedavana Janju Semba Nam Toba Mebe Chir Sherabge Barudu Chimba Lenji Nede Semla Triba Mejin Traba Mede Chiji Lole Shindu Dene Nyangele Debe Taro Shindu Duzundu Namba Shube Sangye Ganje Chira Barudu Chimbala Dene Lana Meba Yanda Barazobe Chanju Dungu Barado Sangye So Tedavana Sherage Barudu Chimbe Nga Riba Chimbe Nga Lana Mebe Nga Minyam Bada Nyambe Nga Dongwe Dangje Radu Shivar Shive Nga Mizu Bena Dembara Shivar Shate Shirake Barudu Chimbe Nga Meba Tayada Gade Gade Para Gade Para Sangade Buddhi So Charibo Zanju Samba Samba Chimbo Zeta Shirake Barudu Samo la la bara chavo tene chomdende tenge zendele shende chanju sembo semba chembo baba jereze wanju la lekso shejawa chene lekso riki bu dede shendo dede shende chedara juje temba shende shirake baru de chemba samo la cheba barchate deshe sheba namya jesu yirango Anju Semba Semba Jemu Baba Shenese Wanchu Hamje Dembe Koro De Dada Adam Midan Bama Yenza Kedra Jebe Jide Yiran De Chomden Degi Sumba Lama
Page 11. Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgriha on Vulture's Peak, together with a great assembly of monks and bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahatattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhira, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Then through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahatattva, saying, how should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahatattva, and replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formations, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eyes, up to no spheres of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to, there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all bodhisattvas hold to the wisdom gone beyond. And because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas dwell in the three times by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awakened to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that comes also. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. Tayada Gandhi Gandhi Paragandhi Paratam Gandhi Bundiso. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahatattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahatattva, saying, very good, O son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said. Then the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world is as gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One. So ends the noble discourse on the essence of the wisdom gone beyond.
아니마 나한테 뭐도 진짜 차기 그래 대단한 나한테 뭐도 진짜 나가다가 나한테 뭐도 지당 같이나 소소도 있어 그 뭐도 나가도 믿어요 이내 땅은 좀 드링디 또 람린다 자세한 두스나도 뭐도 주고요 해서
It is Sunday now, and we resume the great treatise on stages of the path to enlightenment. One approach to many for an introduction to the Buddha Dharma. There are many forms that an introduction into the Buddha Dharma might take, and we take as ours this approach of combining it with our exposure to the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment.
지난 좀 모두 제 냠내 뒤에 거 어디서나 대바시기 냠내나 수 뒤니 아니 냠내 지대오치니 다 망치에 되고는 시기를 해서
Now, mainly and primarily in an introduction into the Buddha Dharma, the concentration will be upon the four truths of the noble ones, all of the aspects of the path of enlightenment concentrated into these four. And this is often the approach to an introduction to the Buddha Dharma.
딱 말하는 건데 람림 같지 않은 시기 요인이 다 람지 창주 람지 바스 책숨이요 창주세 람지 바스 책숨 중에 신나만 모두 람냠내 지다를 바시기 요래서 창주 람지 바스
For our part now, as we approach the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, this is an expression, the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. Here are 4 words of this title orienting us here.
예, 세상다 이 인류 전부다 아무들 청축들이 거도거를 둬서 거래에서 모르지 버렸어. 둬서 거래에서 상주스. 아니 람스리 가네 도거래서 가네 도거래서. 다 되네 람지 리버스리 아니 고토디 प्रधान खंडित और खदुर डोगरे से ता के जति ओदी तमारो जिदि हम पगे पेजना सिदि छानी लामी रिबस लाबर वत यो न के जे रसे भएन ओदा और डोगरे अनि खदुर डोगरे अनि खंडित डोगरे से ता के जे तो ओदी छि न्यामने छि यो रेसो
Enlightenment is the destination where to one travels, where leads the path to enlightenment, to awakening. And when we speak of the path, we mean the means by which one goes, how it is one goes along in this direction. And of stages to that path, it means in the going along, down that path, along that path, when is one going and how is one going? Generally speaking, we turn our attention to a great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. This is what we speak of. But in essence, it is to say, where are you off to? When are you departing? And how will you go?
다 당보들 계속 당보들 저거 당보들 가와도그레스 저거들 가와도그레스 는 도사 가레스 도사의 명들은 창주스 바게 창주스 바게 두부투네다 아주 도사 데레다스 파게레다스 두부투 파게레스 두부티나시 도사 가레스도 아 람게 탈투바 산지지 고반 창주스기들레스 어디 당보들 람 창주스에 되게 도사의 땡기 열에서
That first question, where are you bound to? Where are you off to? There you point, pointing to awakening, pointing to enlightenment. That's it there. That is where I'm off to. This path leads unto that, the ultimate end, that is awakening.
다 디네 가네 조그레스 다 가네 조그레스 다 람디 땡거 람 가네 조고위마 랑가 디네 주 랑가 디네 두기와 말 디네 조그레스 람지도 제다 다 도사 랑가 디네레다 세 아니 람세데 다 나도 단다마 디네 장주사가 줘야게 람지다 남샤되게 시기 열에서 오죠.
And the next question, where from does one go there? From here, along the path one goes. One enters here, not there, but here. And therefore, leaving from here, one takes their course to their awakening, enlightenment.
다 디네 디니바 스마들레 좀다 간데스 조그레스 세다 가두 조그레 간데스 조그레스 세다 저거들리 다 딜리도 아니 다 남지 리바스 다 도당 데데데 여 디네 도교여 말 랑가 디네 도나다 랑가 노르레 디네 도나 랑가 드버세 다 어떻게 시가 디나시 다 람마 노르 로고야 지도라 다 남지 리바스 어디 지도다 달리 도와서
And the third question, how does one go along this path? When does one go along it and how does one progress along it? And one does in stages. The way is this way. Along the way, one proceeds in this way and not in that way. To proceed in that way would be incorrect. Proceeding in this way is correct. and without error. These are the stages along the path in a progression.
Oh yeah, that is the number that was you cover is the Changju, or the Sanji Goma. That's doing Tamji that Tewa, there were Tamji that Demi Goma, Changju Singi Yore, it channel the Drosa the rest, it was a Udimoson. That Dilla Droya Chidu and the country store, Sidusama, that Langa, Changju Lamji Rimba, Lo Jaya, that on the Lamrini shape, Lamji Rimba, the get Langa did the digital, the Drosa Langa Reda, say that Lamdi. 다 간데스 쪽으로 다 거기 간에 쪽으로 쓰듯한바 아니 가려서 다 기부성지 남지 림박 남샤 디네 쪽으로 다 쓰듯 아니 조사겠다 도단 남디기 때문에 이게 연구여서 소리지.
The destination is awakening, Buddhahood, enlightenment, that state in which one is parted from all pain and experiences every contentment. That's the destination. This is our objective. It is identified in that way. One trains in such a way that they arrive there. This is the path. When we speak of the path, we say, this is it. This is the means. It isn't that, it's just this. This is the way, the path. And how is it that one proceeds along this path? One does so by following a dharma of three scopes. That's the way.
Oh, yeah, that is the dosa. That forget. yu 조사 랑가 숨제 다 디순 상사도 좀 맞다 도야 뒤주 가도 줘그래 진짜 봐. 다 뒤주 가도 줘그래 진짜 봐. 아니 다 뒤디 배 제일 쉬기요 말 뒤주 딱딱로 줘그래다 세로와 대나신지는 뒤디 뒤 단단히 줘그래 맞도 지금 제다. 다 집에 뒤주 제마라도 줘그래. 뒤주 상고 전에 로그이 막 단다 뒤주면 제일 로그이 있어야 돼. 되게 요 말을 되잖아 제일 쉬고요. 제가 뒤주디 도야 뒤주디 아니 달로 단다 어디는 로투가 거래서
That way then the destination and the path to the destination and the way the path is followed unto the destination. And then regarding the time, which time applies for this? This very moment without delay. You are to go on time in a timely manner, pass along this path, beginning now, not dilly-dallying to say when I get time, or at a better time, or another time, none of that, but instead this year, right now.
Oh yeah, that is that the Hindu tamata Lamrim that Lamshi Lamrim go to Tambo Tenjo Tenjinia Lamri go Kane Zugrelana, Tenjo Tenjinia go to Grace. That Karichen is na that should go to Gray, should go Grace and towards your big land Yatanala. That dog when you did around the Milu top the and then around the Milu top the I need to of share of Namju that Demba. 推荐唱话也给买吧，也这个唱的那个美女头的人，俺做土个人做古个人是，我的主要对我想看到了，俺那边过得了，天朝天前年个是，天朝的年个话的，天气话的，对我这些送个药来送去。
One begins along the path from the starting point of the path, which is the recognition of the precious human embodiment and its significance. Why does the indication of where the path is begin with this? Because it is the answer to who is able to travel along this path, who must travel along this path. The answer being that individual endowed with the precious human embodiment, precious for its leisures and its endowments, and of great significance. One is then with the human endowment, endowed with a native intelligence for discriminating between dharmas. One has potential in all the endowments of their embodiment, and one is able to overcome obstacles by virtue of it. One indicates the significance of the human endowment with this, that the path begins in the recognition of the precious human embodiment with its leisures and its endowments, which is so difficult to achieve and of such great significance.
하여튼 번역 때 개버 수도 두고 여봐도 수도 여봐도 하고 자도 아니 로드 잠바다 남라 강에 마요와 남 만으로와 남라 파 대보시는 저 투야 지도라 남도인신이 고그로와 남도인신이 제당 안 하죠 남디 남빈이 쳔베 남디게 대랑이 줄라 모셔봐 랑이 줄라 깨봐 랑이 줄라 토벌 제발라 다 당부 신이 된지 고고 여봐 제당 신이 된지 고고 여봐디 아니 어빼 되나시래 손으로
With the individual who is able to travel along this path identified, that individual who must travel this path identified for us, then it follows to find how is it then that such an individual will travel along this path and arrive where they must without any difficulty. What ensures ease of passage along this path? None other but the guide along the path, and that guide is the Kalyana Mitra who introduces the path to the mind of the disciple, who produces realization in the mind of the disciple, who is underlying every achievement in this individual traveling along the path. Thus, the reliance upon the Kalyana Mitra, the spiritual guide, is of first importance.
제가 이 신이 때 주대양 신이 때 남만으로 된 투니 남들이 규여봐 남만으로 된 투봐 데리지 된 거를 해서
Gyuyoba, Gyudandrebu, Gyu, Yaman, Gyu, Thus, the guru discipline of reliance upon the spiritual mentor, such that one make no mistake traveling along the path. One relies upon a guide who has experience in the path.
로니 미팅 개사래 로야 남도인 진이 기계 된 차를 딱 가두 쪽으로 사기 가운데 셔야 됐다. 두즈디 베트링니 로마토나 아니 바게 제스기 매바다. 제루 쇼고 요바다 안라 고야도 톱기 매바 이두 뒤타다는 로고레 오페 디셰바나시 디지돌라 아주 다들 디고를 치워합니다. 치워합니다. 바디 아니 아주 드링님 맞잖아. 치워합니다. 바게 아니 여바지에 아니 로마토가 자기가 와서 베티 치워합니다. 수고 열에 손었어.
With the person to travel along the path clarified for us, and the Kalyana Mitra upon whom one will rely for guidance along the path clarified for us, then we return for a moment to what I have said of the proper time to begin the progress along the path, and that is not to delay until tomorrow. For should one do that, then one won't catch the departing momentum, and one will arrive only late. And so one must certainly depart beginning now, and to urge this upon one, then the meditation upon the recognition of the imminence of death and impermanence all along. That is, if one doesn't begin presently, then imminent death and impermanence will step in and prevent progress.
밀루 디던 템버 디기 로투고 여바다 밀루 디 메바이나 로투고 메바 인디 삼바 나가주 밀루 디던 템베 고는 로코고를 로와라 인 거기 로투에 발제디기 por 세고 거스다 치워 메타버기 발제 말레 고네 나랑게 취 냠슬렌 투버지 총나 나랑게 드즈는 레버도 총아래 나 치워 메타버레 사나 아니 먼저 취지에 고급디 쇼를 해서 뭐지.
So it is the person who is with human embodiment that is able to go along the path. And it is the individual who has been deprived of that who is unable to. So then one must proceed when one is a human being with the human embodiment. And one must clear away any obstacle to one's progress while they have the human embodiment. For if imminent death intervenes before one has begun their progress, then success in the Dharma is prevented.
저거 진짜 미지디 랑 미지디 된다 때문에 털라 마도지 오버레스 다 미지 된다 때문에 털라 마도지 간데 소레스 다 저들려도 아니 미지디 야고 고알라 당보 로디 야고 소고 로디 야고 나와디 야고 니마디 야고 드링 야고 차나 아니 디네 갈레 듀다디 나와디 로디 야고 차나 도스토고 드링 야고 마쇼가 있나 니마디 털라 도서래 니마디 털라도디 니마디 다와디 톨라도 그래 로톨라도 아니 미지 톨라도 그래 세상 세상인데 미지 약고 된다 되면 써야지 제마 세 개제 되는 요 말았어 링스야 그게 되는 것도 보고 요래서 뭐지
The human life must be made meaningful and significant and not allowed to go to waste. And how is this ensured? It is ensured by making each moment that constitutes the day which constitutes and makes up the month, and the month which makes up the year, and the years that make up an entire lifetime, making every moment along the way meaningful. If the moment is squandered, then the day will be squandered. If the day is squandered, the week will be squandered, the week squandered, the month, then the year, and then the entire life. So then there is no place to delay. There's no sense in mentioning tomorrow as the better moment to begin. It must begin now.
다 드리는 것도 그거 얘는 아니 간데스 것도 그래스 다 디워트거든 다 진짜 드리는 것도에 디 그거에 다 드리는 손들하게 룽아 이숨기 자와 가리체가 이나양 레 상보 세다 레의 준제기 남샤디 셰고요레 제사다 레 상보디 사 레녀버디 사유나 용르다 양조권의 마사바체 다 디기 내가 되는 것도 그래서
Then if one must begin now, how is it that one ought to begin? Beginning from today, one must comport oneself in body, speech, and mind in every way, in virtuous ways, alone and never in non-virtuous ways. And wherever one can recognize in oneself a non-virtuous activity, then reduce those, and in every virtuous activity, increase them and improve them.
예, 제가 다 인류 말한 쪽에 레 산예디 가리사르서 룽아 예수기 고숨스가 고숨 되게 사게 디사 중에디 이 나로 룽아 예수기 나로도 되게 말한 쪽 셈다 냠돌라 아니 레 미기와 산예기다 뉴모 스기디요 뉴모 되게 왕게 맞아 레 미기와 사게 야, 딸 미겨 산예디 뉴모디 온기사 딸 레게와사 그거 유나 아니 셈디냠돌레 니모디다 파트와 메바 셈디냠돌라 아니 셈 상고 창주고 셈세야다 닝지 첨부 창바스게 디주다 셈디주고 온도 땅이나 셈디 부두냠도 땅이나 레게와사 도그레 룽아 이순가지 레게와사 도그레 셈디 니모고 온도 로이나 룽아 이순 내가 가르쳐 왔는데 레 미겨와사 그래서 제가 달래 겨와도 미겨 이나다 뭐 고주서 그냥 쪽으로 해서
Virtues are accumulated through activities of body, speech, and mind. Physical action, verbal action, mental activities. And inside of every one of these is the mind itself underlying those activities. And when that mind is involved in afflicted mentalities, klesha, then those klesha influencing the mind cause one to act physically, verbally, and mentally in non-virtuous ways. Then should one intend to act in virtuous ways, how is it that one would do this? One does so by deposing those klesha, the afflicted minds, from one's mind, parting oneself from the influence of mental afflictions, by developing the virtuous minds that are such minds as Mahakaruna, great compassion, and Maitri, love, and Bodhicitta, the mind of awakening. Where these are developed in the mind, then one is influenced to physically, verbally, mentally engage virtuously. But wherever there are afflicted minds, the klesha, then one's actions will be non-virtuous, the actions of body, speech, and mind. Then it is here, then, in a presentation of virtue and non-virtue, where one begins.
야, 세상 다 라면데 그냥 고쪽을 해서도 아주 냠내체 고쪽세야다 직체 냠내 드리는 고쪽을 세야다 tuk사디 다 레다 균제기 남샤 되네 수수기 냠내체 고쪽을 해서
One must begin one's progress along the path And where would one begin it? When would one begin it? Today. And where is the place to begin that progress? In just this, the framework of virtue and non-virtue.
예. 근데 이제 좀 봤다 람림 나나 마치 송윤도 아니 바게 식 배주 다야다 직 배자라다 이 아니 진짜 바게 된지 뜻이 야야 강가 당부 동행이 돌아 동행이 뜻이 야고 진이 뭐 trouble 진이 잡이 열었어 이 잡고야지 가르스나 동행 뭐 맞잖아 아니 동행이 유 뭐시는 말 동행이 유 뭐 마셔나 아니 동행 용을 다 탑시에 요 말했어 제가 근데 메뉴 잠바 한번 동해도 뭐야 아니 동해도 간에 종아래스 종석이 규디 제제 다 드네 가르쳐 그래서도 동해도 매워 쏘고 매워 쏘야라 탑시에 가르여래서 다 동해기 규디 뭐시네 동해기 규디 바꿔봐이나 아니 동해 제부 용하게 나가 요 말로 제가 한번 동해 뭐죠 아니 동해 뭐쳐서나 아니 동해디 간을 주디 규디 뭐죠 아니 규디 매버서 합시다. 냠내 쳐야 돼서.
يعني Lamrim kapla. Presenting the great treatise on the stages of the path of enlightenment, the approach is to use metaphor to elucidate meaning, and all for the purpose of identifying pain and recognizing pain and suffering. And why must pain and suffering be recognized? It must be for without an understanding, a comprehension of pain and suffering as it is, then there will be no identification, recognition that pain and suffering is caused, it has its cause. Without any recognition that pains and sufferings have a cause, there will be no recognition of a way for eliminating those pains and sufferings. So it is that this process of beginning with metaphor to elucidate meaning is for the purpose of identifying pain and suffering, so that an examination can find the causes of pain and suffering, so that as one wishes to abandon, to be parted from pain and suffering, one can part oneself from pain and suffering by identifying the causes of pain and suffering and eliminating the cause of pain and suffering. For with the elimination of any cause, then naturally the consequence, the result of what would have been the cause, what would be the cause, does not arise, for the cause has been eliminated. And so it is we wish to eliminate pain and suffering, and we do so by identifying the cause of pain and suffering.
네. 세상 인류 좀 맞다. 단단 나도 남ರಿಗೆ 있다. 레시에 뭐래? 레데라 레게와시에 고기요래. 레 미게와시에 고기요래. 이나양 뭐래 미게와 시 레미게와야 오지 뭐트. 아니 신에 레미게와 있다. 간데스 빵고래. 아니 빵고지. 아니 레미게와 빵도도 빵보이나? 아니 레게와 이거랑 제일 수가 연구요래. 세상 인류 레 미게와도 통보야 오지 뭐 쳐버쳐야 돼. 아니 냠내기 백내 쳐차대요. 그래서
In the context of the path, the presentation of karma causality is of utmost importance. One begins in a presentation of non-virtue and virtues. And in this presentation begins first with the introduction to non-virtues, for the reason that the non-virtues identified allow one to proceed to abandon, eliminate these non-virtues. And in the very process of abandoning non-virtues and destructive attitudes, naturally virtuous, constructive attitudes arise. And so then the presentation of destructive attitudes, non-virtuous actions, coming first in this presentation of karmic causality, is of major significance.
됐다. 근데 이제 레 미게와 승에데 뭐 쳐오르스 라브와 그다다 레 미게와 승에데랑 아주 수수수로 레 미게와 간데스 요래스나 le migiwa dela le migiwa manzo moma sa sajo le migiwa chikche tanda sa shimbe le migiwa yo moba sa bo yube le migiwa otile yo reso.
In karmas, in non-virtuous karmas, there are three sorts: those that have been accumulated in the past, their accumulation has been complete; those that are presently accumulating; and those that will accumulate. These three.
다 만족을 말사 샤베 레기 말사 심베기 레 미기와 딜라 만족이 지디가지 요르 디가지 요 말에서 체 요르스나 체 요 말에서 다 다다사 심베 레딜라 체 시그리 체 그때 대 용어도 장가도 있는 용어 지초그래서 에 마음발 사바 주베 레딜라 이나야 아니 레딜라 장가 체 매바 이제 제니 숨거래서 뭐지.
Of those non-virtuous karmas accumulated already, their accumulation complete, is there any sense to the question just how much, just how many non-virtuous karmas have been accumulated? Is it quantifiable? There's no sense to this question, no quantification of it. Of non-virtuous karmas accumulating in the present, it might just be sensible to ask, is it quantifiable? It might just be finite, those that are accumulating in the present, but then look again into the future and non-virtuous karmas that will accumulate in the future, there again, those are unquantifiable.
Boy, that late migiwa digi that late migiwa dile that on do diniba kazan namso tundangoma sheba dojina le migiwa dilaya rangi sabe le migiwa chikche shenla sa chukwa chebe le migiwa chikche shenji sa shigyo le migiwa dila rangi jesu yirangwe le migiwa chik de sum yore sums.
As I observed last week of non-virtuous karmas, they take three forms: those that one is personally responsible for and in which one acted directly; those that one caused others to engage in; and those engaged in by others in which one oneself celebrates.
le migiwa 하장기 장가 자무투에 망부 유여바 띵을 쳐내 다 오늘 le migiwa 되게 가르치기로 했으나 le migiwa 랑을 파 유여바 이나 아니 되게 제부디 동해 임바디 다 녀버렸어 le bus pass 시뱅이 수행 담는 수 가차고 제여바 방 수행 아무 담는 수 제부 아무 제고 디나시 나서 le migiwa 되게 제부 동해 임바디 다 세부세냐를 손지.
Non-virtuous karmas accumulated are unquantifiable. We conclude this, and with an awareness of just this, we ask, what do non-virtuous karmas influence? Their influence is the very result of pain and suffering. This is definite. That is, whatever the cause, the result consistent with the cause necessarily results. So it is with a pepper seed, a seed of a pepper plant planted will yield a pepper that is spicy. And a sweet sugar seed of such a plant planted will yield a sugar plant that produces sweetness. This is the way it is.
that in the Tamazo le migiwa yobata, migiwa tibu dungi imba, that ratru, and that carichore, tapshi cariores. That did it, that the case did it, that was the legua. And that carichore, tapshi carichores, that lady meba sogres, lady meba masona, tibu dungi kigre, dungi dogi yobata dungi kigre, with yorwa. That is that dungi meba sogona, that tapshi cariores. 아니 다 답시들라 아니 것도 없이 생이네 다 뜻이 저기 요래 손지 레디 매버 차야 답시들라 니 것도 없이 거를.
Then when it is the case that the result of non-virtuous karmas is necessarily pain and suffering, then what? What follows? Where do we arrive having understood this is the natural next step, isn't it? So we answered that one eliminates those non-virtuous karmas that otherwise result in pain and suffering. The cause is there. When the cause of pain and suffering is there, then the result, pain and suffering, arises. But when the cause is eliminated, then the result, that is pain and suffering, does not arise. And so what is the means? What means is available to eliminate these non-virtuous karmas? Available are the antidote powers. The application of antidote powers is required for the elimination of the karmas that result in pain and suffering. When one applies antidote powers, when one applies the 4 antidote powers, misdeeds for which one is responsible may be removed. Without the application of antidote powers, there's no removal of any such misdeed.
rangi dungedi rangi mideba yimbadi ngujur juze samla tang mare du su ina ya semje tunru ina ya dunge dugu mebadi koran dugu yo mar semje u yo chinjel da anda ko dunge mideba da dewa deba yimbadi am chunir da indu sambati dunge mideba da dewa deba de yimba ina ani dewa du bugu yore dunge pang bugu yore mado de mabana dunge mutu ni leong go cha da dunge pang go pa ya tabshi de la ni bo topshi le tawa yo mare so
Dopo 가르사그래? dopo 가르사그래 아니 문드라 카 숨 든 송송 카 문드라 숨 가르사
뭐다 님부터 없이 님부터 없이 거네니 디버 자기 유의 메시지로 님부터 없이 때 뭐이나 디버 다다 마다서 아니 대양 니버들 아니 디버디 니버도 다 보고 여봐 마타나 아니 디버디 마타바 이나 아니 제고 동에 요고 여봐 어디 아니 숨바들라다 안달 대화 동에 미디어바다 대화 되어바디
Thus, for the elimination of negative karmas, non-virtuous karmas, the antidote powers must be applied. Where they are applied, the misdeeds are purified. Wherever they are left unapplied, the misdeeds remain. This is the first point. The second point is that naturally we must eliminate those negative karmas, the non-virtuous karmas. That's the second point, followed by the third. That is, pain and suffering follows from non-virtue. If we wish to avoid pain and suffering, then we wish to eliminate the cause of pain and suffering. Every living being has in common the desire to avoid, rather the desire for contentment, and wishes to avoid pain. This doesn't require any thought. It is perfectly obvious to every one of us. So long as one is living and breathing, one wishes to avoid pain and find pleasure. Thus, pains must be eliminated and pleasures must be achieved. This is one's objective, and how one does it is through application of the antidote powers to the non-virtues that are cause for pain and suffering.
어여다 이제 이것도 없이 대전부 차서 와서 이것도 없이 대전부 차다. 이제 다 이것도 없이 시도 장가시래. 어디 장가시도 망고 말하지. 나한테 땡땡이 니하고 좋나? 아니 네가 이거도 샤투를 해서.
Then it becomes exceedingly clear the importance of the antidote powers, their critical nature, and they are only 4. As 4 is not so many, it is easy enough to understand just what these 4 are, and so one would understand what these 4 are. As therefore, one just uses their 4 fingers and counts and attaches each antidote power to one of the 4 fingers that they've raised. So then of the 4 raised fingers, the first to identify as of greatest importance of all is the application of the antidote powers. The antidote power, that is, the application of antidote powers. This is the first and foremost. But unfortunately, I've scrambled them up myself.
Yeah, that is Dangwood in the Stimenda, Dangwood in the Nabukuto Marta, Dangwood in Tanisha North, number swings in the tops. What did that Nimutopshin and Neport Tango case you the resource?
So in proper order, the order that I scrambled up, in proper order of first significance is this, the antidote power of remorse, this of great importance.
Oh, yeah, that number swings in the top Yena and top Hamasumti, Yong number swings in the top the Mena, number Semas in the Yong to Marachana, Tango to catch him.
With the antidote power of remorse, the other three antidote powers follow naturally. If it is absent, the other three antidote powers do not follow naturally.
Oh, that's Hangodi number swings in the top citizen, but and this some tango is not. Tang around to each on Momata Tangon around Le Giwa the Migiwa de Yabu, Murmatra Chixe. And they gonna lay Migiwa de Yapoching Murmatra was it, and lay Migiwa with Tibu Dungain, but the Murmatra you do. Mazu top Tango de Yong, there's Kabu Yores. That's Susan, the butter, the body of water, Moshana, and then I'm swinging the top the Yong, they would have their resumes.
Now, how should we think about this antidote power of remorse? We can think in terms of our own past, and that, first of all, we were incapable of distinguishing virtuous karmas from non-virtuous karmas, and when this was impossible, there was no recognition of the value of the antidote power of remorse. But with the new familiarity with non-virtuous karmas, then it has become now natural and easy to recognize the importance of the antidote power of remorse.
Oh, yeah. And they do rangi. Semna temper yoba, tembe, the body most ten. And it danger from the shop, but not that people in this session, not sharp. Best also dream us on something. And what the temper got response.
So then, in one's mind, using one's power of recollection, with that recollection, draw back and drag up the non-virtues for which one is responsible, see them clearly, recognize that they are shameful and problematic.
That intends that I need to then rangi Martembagi, Marsa Sembe Tigba. Ani said Dilla Sa Shimbagi Tigba Martemba. Any Mahomba Saba Cuba to Martemba to Zoyang, Ani bet need the Che Yuna. Ani bet that Dimas on some person like Yoba and catching what the Yuna, Tigba Tiger resonance.
Just revise shame. The interpreter wishes to revise shame for inconsideration. Replace shame with inconsiderate and inconsideration. Then one can, through the power of recollection, in their mind, recall actions for which they are responsible. But then there are those that one isn't able to necessarily recall in particular, both those that have occurred in the past, those that are presently occurring, and those naturally that occur in the future. These aren't known and can't be, through the power of recollection, recalled. But the recognition that one will be responsible, has been responsible for these two inconsiderate actions. This is involved too in the development of remorse.
Oh, 말하면서 이만 얘기 소외 나라 아니 이제 디코치 라디스 막 말도 좋아돼 디코치에서도 남산 미지를 배 동마 못때 깨는 동자제 맨날 나벌 천재로 키니 배 지휘들이 제게 데리지 제가 있나 아니 그 동자 제기 두고 디코치에서 선배 좋아다 근데 맞이나 디코 맞이be 좋아져 띵어서 때 딱딱 되게 말해서
네, 여기 있어.
아주 뒤주님에게 소외나 많아도 되고 제마지 사무 땅땅 줘봐. 나가나도 밀레 뛰어봐도 파이게. 밀레 직주자들라. 왜 밀레 콩도때 동마모때 지천자라 소바 킨포이 셴라 너바게요나 어게 되고 제 되면은 되고 제매 삼백이 소화줘랬어. 되게 나도 개와체도 되고 제 참나다가 되게 연말해서
As we think about non-virtuous karmas, it doesn't work to only envision non-virtuous karmas in the crudest sense that we usually do of here's a person who is quick to grow furious and they become blustering mad and they become violent and they're ticked off and they leave and they return with a weapon and then they harm others. This is not this idea of harm and that which is non-virtuous is not the one that should inform our understanding of virtue and non-virtue. It doesn't draw the line between virtue and non-virtue.
세상 가지고 다른 진지 단진기 원기 아니 마스 진나양 레미교 직사기요 잘라 야가지 통 랑기 나와도 잘라도 미도 통구나 아지 선 법하기 잘라도 야가라 선 되자기 원기 법이 들어가는 되바께서나 내 직사자 레미교사 랑기 마가와 지금 미지기 아니 랑 투바도 그걸 내가 지도 랑이 먼저 좀 아직 거의 최소한 3년 세미나를 찍기도 내 미국지 사찰 제가 뒤에 좀 내 미국 배 두자 사찰을 해서
Any action informed by grasping at the self is a non-virtuous action. It's simply when one encounters something appealing, a person who's appealing, some item that's appealing, it's appealing and then one wants it. With that, one has accumulated a non-virtuous karma, just in that. Or one encounters a person one dislikes and meeting them reflects again. They're responsible for that. I dislike that in them. There again, one is responsible for a non-virtuous karma.
다단 뒤마디게 돈에 레사게 계제 시단 뒤마디 돈에 내가 레사게 수부전단 뒤마디 돈 레사게 제단 레사를 뺄래라고 해서
a mere scowl, a finger wagged in one's direction, one critical word is always enough to cause for a non-virtuous karma.
제단 다지게 레라 장가요 말했어요. 뭐 레라 장가요 이만치 사베 레라 장가 잡고요 그래서
These karmas are innumerable. They're innumerable even in the span of one day.
근데 인도서마다 되게 마샤나 아니 되고 장가 망탄 하장 뭐체는 샤마투야. 아니 되게 배 제부 동에 줘야 매바 용대요. 지단 다 디인디 맞아. 되게 샤바이나 아니 되게 제부 동에 용거 말와. 제가 되게 바샤나 capsan 친구도 와서
The non-virtuous karmas are innumerable and they continue to increase and they threaten to continue to increase without ever being addressed by antidote powers such that eventually they become insurmountable. And so then the urgency of applying antidote powers to non-virtues so that their results never come about.
뭐야 하긴 또 당무디 누구 당무디 남바 순진배 또 세대다 알겠으면 녀바세 장가디 녀바인다 당고 장가만 있는 만에 장가 남바 순진배 또 세제 다 녀바디 남바 순진배 또디 예배 토네 아니 녀부 군도 집에 또 녀부 군도 집에 또 세대 녀바디 데려서
Then clearly identify the first antidote power, the antidote power of remorse. It's the first antidote power, and you've raised one finger, and that's the first. And then followed by the second, the application of the antidote powers, where there is the antidote power of remorse, then it follows naturally the antidote power of the application of antidote powers.
난 니부 군도 집에 또 생이디 또 당고디 그랑기 나기 비고 싸가지고 지금 송삼배 셈나로 때 그랑기 단 내가 예수님께 줘봐 가리 마디고나 되게 마디고 되게 줘봐 예배 토네 아니 시행了동의 공부 창조생 공부 인지 공부 아니 나의 송된 바 배나 이제 되봐 아니 산지 구신 바 최된 생바 근데 단미 시행了아니 미센나 남자 요바를 줘봐 아니 미 소리 지고 요바를 줘봐 내발을 내 줘봐 아니 밀라 베랑이 셈삼보도는 시행을 팬배 취시해 봐 어떻게 간갈로 이 목군도 집에 떠나는 요래 손하지
With awareness and recognition of one's responsibility for non-virtuous karmas, and with the acknowledgement that those non-virtuous karmas aren't right. It isn't right to be so engaged. And yet, in my actions of body, speech, and mind, I have been, and it hasn't been right to have been. So now with this remorse, one then addresses this responsibility by meditation in emptiness, meditation in bodhicitta, in great compassion, in the mantrayana, in recitation of the 100-syllable mantra, through constructing stupas and buttas, by protecting others from fear and threats to their life, and through generous assistance to others in need.
어떤 이제 단대 망고요다 정말 뭐 이게 답변이나 정말 잡아 되기도 맞아와 망고요레스 다 단다 파 도르스 되나 가르쳐서는 개와 여러 개와 레 개와선데 개와디 마제바 개버 제바 직세 개 차와디 공도 배워 제비 일단 저와 가르쳐요나양 아니 또 이봐 이 목고도 집에 또 나온 찍고도 해서
And there are, besides those I've mentioned, many other forms that the application of antidote powers takes. Here are just a few. But to draw all of them together, they are, in all virtuous karmas, those virtues that are for the development of virtue, and those that are for the intensification of virtues that have already developed. Whatever form virtues and virtuous karmas take, they fall into this second antidote power, the application of the antidote powers.
뭐요? 다디나지 빅발라 하지 않으네. 니뭐 똑잖아요. 빅발 깨봐. 빅발 깨사와디 봐 뽕어죠. 순지마 뽕어 도버지 제바디 아니 니무군도 집에 떠버려. 다 빅발 마깨바디 깨마사와디 아주 권에 빅발 아주 권에 레마사바. 빅발 권에 마사바디 아니 니무군도 집에 떠나 열애서노지.
And so then applying the same concept to the non-virtues for the abandonment, the elimination of non-virtuous karmas for which one is responsible, the application of antidote powers, and for the prevention of non-virtuous karmas from ever arising at all, so too the application of the antidote powers. Here again, this second antidote power, the application of the antidote power addresses non-virtues that haven't arisen as well as those that have.
뭐요? 근데 이들은 다 나중에 니보고 또 입어 니보고도 집에 또 생이 하장 망보 장가이네 하장 망보를 하장 야침보를 해서
This second antidote power, the antidote power of the application of antidote powers, includes many instances of this application of an antidote power. There are many forms that it takes.
나도 무슨 말이야 당신 무슨 말이 민라 뭐야 이래다 니 톱시나 가라 톱시 니뭐 담보 디만 남아 수집에도 니뭐 군도 집에도 다 숨바디 네발을 라르 도베 톱스 숨바디 네발을 라르 도베 톱스
Followed now by raising the third finger and giving a name to it, which is the name of the third antidote power. The third antidote power following the first, which is the antidote power of remorse, and the second, that is the antidote power of the application of antidote powers. Here then the third, on the third finger, the antidote power of future restraint.
다 디스탐버 단단 가르스네 친지 솔로 밥장 매기와 레사기 매 삼베다 domsen keva 되었습니다.
And it is this inward commitment to even under threat to my life, I will never at all, ever again engage in a non-virtuous activity.
말한도 미지디나 나도 개치주디 소들어다 소야가 지도라 숨겹진 강가 지그로 소 자치주 지그로 텔레장 아니 레미기와 사바디 텔레제 레미기와 마사바디 텔레장 개치와 자되어스 가르치는스나 소디 소나 수술라 대화 토백이 라와치요라 저는 디요 대화 토백이 된다 라와이나 소 자치고 지바로 왔어 대이나 아니 소주 친지 미지스면 dom심디 여바이나 여와치 미기와 스페치기메 삼부 dom심 축심부터 여바이나 아니 수수기 도바 토도 때네랑 둥에디기 강가 바까 아니 대화 토백 여바인지 꼭 개침부 자들에서
직체인스래.
야
직체인스래. 예, 닝긴 이케시기 성격 대 직체인스래. 사디 체격 가리나. Right. 강 아니 전전데 라샤가.
네.
직체스. As it is in a life, threats to our life are taken as the greatest threat of all, and we do any number of things in an effort to protect ourselves. But here, the point is just that more valuable than our lives is our commitment to never engage in non-virtuous karmas. It surpasses the value of our life. And so it is then that where there is this inward commitment to restrain from non-virtue, one is ensuring that the cause of pain is eliminated for one.
도투세 난또 숨바제다 또 시버디 땡기 톱스 나 디바 샤사기 유기체는 시기요래 내가 이제 땡기 톱스디 톱 시버디를 숨었어.
And the fourth antidote power, that is the antidote power of the support. This is the basis for confession and purification of non-virtuous karmas.
야, 근데 이제서 뭐다 땡기 톱디 간데레스나 땡기 톱들라 겸로다 생게 니요래 숨었어.
And the antidote power of the support is two: refuge and the mind of awakening.
야, 다디 간데스나 라니 코어던 오늘 내송이 동해 아보다 수수기 코에게 내단 코에게 동해들이 야고삼 아니 내송이 코에게 나네자 동해 시도 라바 동해 쳐와 내송을 제가 내송이 동해들이 들어가기 야고진 삼로다 모셔바지 모르트 아니 신에들 내송이 동해들 직신 잡아다 내송이 동해 진짜 잡고들 단 용도고 말을 너는 지금 말에 삼네 직신 잡을 로케네 아니 신에다 내송이 동해 코에 동해를 수입 투그래 이를 잡투에 이거 술래열에서 아니 신에 군조스게 겸예지 여봐 아니 겸예지 여봐지 아니 거기 좀 두고 여봐 어딘지 이체를 거네 아니 신에 이렇게 겸으시 그래서
One themselves recognizes in samsara, recognizes all the more evidently in the grossest form that pain takes in the hell realms. In the hell realms, then too, the situation that characterizes samsara generally, that of pain. The pain seen in the hell realms is evident, obvious, and characterizes samsara generally. But one looks to the hell realms and recognizes the pain to be found there and feels naturally in response a terror of that pain, a fear of that pain, with the recognition that such pain is intolerable. I wouldn't be able to tolerate it. I can't tolerate such pain. So what might I do? How may I find protection from such a plight as suffering the pain of the hell realms? And then gradually, dawns the recognition that there is a refuge, that there is a protection from such pain. Such a refuge exists, and that refuge is capable of protecting one from the pain of the hell realms. And then with this recognition of the existence of a refuge capable of this, one goes for refuge just there to that refuge.
다디 누드마다 잠루디 율레 깨버 제발라 다 예버도 유니 참고 차레스 다 유니디 가르스는 직신 잡 직자 대당 당이 코아도 동행을 직신 잡아 대당 헬레 껴베 니바 구조를 이봐 이지 대반이보디 상나 잠부지기 여봐 대니 마사나 잠부지기 매봐 어디 차대요 예송지
There are two causes necessary for refuge to be authentic. That is, first, a fear of samsara and of the hell realms. This is required. So too is the recognition that the refuge is capable of protecting one from this fear, and the faith and confidence in the refuge, in its capability, in its ability to protect from this fear. This is the second necessary cause for refuge. These two, fear and faith, are required for refuge. Where they are present, refuge is authentic. Where they are not, refuge is not.
다치단 잠루 썸 깨버래 유니니 바로 상고하지 다 단단한 잠루 가리셔서나 대과침비 잠루스 장주 라빈 셰베 잠루도 깨고요 이 대과침비 잠루래 아 대과침비 잠루 인도 사랑 지바단 하게 지발을 잡아단 군조를 이슈에 대바 깨고 요반나시 신 아니 미기베 지부 동해를 잡에 치도 아니 가르고아레스나 만들에 잡도기 되베 그 교시 동해를 잡네 대화를 꾼도기 장주고 셈도 거라스 뒤숨 상하이나 아니 다르게 와신 잡으로서 차리요 그래서
Where these two, fear and faith, are present, mere refuge is present. This is mere refuge, mere satisfaction of these two criteria. It is not the Mahayana refuge. The Mahayana refuge is the refuge intended in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. In the context of the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, refuge is Mahayana refuge. Mahayana refuge is characterized by, in addition to these first two causes, that first fear, personal fear of a plight in samsara, filled with pain, is enlarged to embrace the plight of all sentient beings who, by the force of their non-virtues, are mired in pain. One would protect them from the result of their non-virtues, that is their pain, and do so by the development of the mind of awakening, so that they may be parted from their pain and established in lasting contentment. When these two first causes and this third are present, then the refuge is the Mahayana refuge.
Oh yeah, that's that 인고 없이 장가들 표차라 있는 것도 없이 두 시간 당고된 넘버 순진데 또 예버디 예보 군도 집에 또 숨바디 예발을 날도 또 시바디 아니 ям도 생기 땡기도 없이 ям도도 생기시 오다 장가 시리 그렇게 못 차대요 그래서
Now I have offered to you 4 antidote powers, a finger at a time, beginning with the antidote power of remorse, followed by the antidote power of the application of the antidote powers, followed by the antidote power of future restraint, followed by the 4th antidote power of refuge and the mind of awakening. These are the 4.
아니 샤마토에 되고 여러 개서는 나도 요말해서
Should one implement these 4, does there remain any non-virtuous karma that wouldn't be purified? There is no such karma that is resistant to the antidote powers.
어디 말을 먼저 배나 냠네 창주 셈비 냠네 진행이나 이거 님부터 없이 다 존나 개화를 치료선 봐 님부터 없이 전투 보고요 예시 가수지 탑 용다 첨부 있네 이마지가 니 전투나 히라야고 요레스 니모 제베 디바디 세모샤 세모 제베 디바디 니모 샤바이나 아니 라나단 디바기 제부 동에 용야 그나가 요 말해서
Each day in one's practice, if one is practicing, if one is meditating in the mind of awakening, and then for every virtue one engages in, one recalls to the application of antidote powers. But for one who isn't continuously so absorbed, then in a day, 2 times at least, one should recall the antidote powers applied to the non-virtuous karmas that one is responsible for in the morning. And then again in the evening, the application of the antidote powers to those non-virtues for which one is responsible in the afternoon.
다 배제 가시나는 님부 톱식이 마타베 디고 요 말스 한테 시들이 견단 요 이수수기 다 배제다 내주도 가도 잘 두고 거야 산지 네가 산지 송로 님부 톱식이 마타베 디고 요바 송아 배제 요 산지 송요래 님부 톱식이 마타베 디고 매바야 산지 송요래 제가 미조 수수 삼로도 잘 심고 거래서
In the diversity of views in philosophical schools, one finds scriptural citation supporting the argument that there are non-virtuous karmas that are even resistant to the application of the 4 antidote powers. There's scriptural support for this in the very word of the Buddha. There are, too, in philosophical schools, scriptural citation of the Buddha himself to the effect that no non-virtuous karma whatsoever is resistant to the application of the antidote powers. That both are the authoritative word of the Buddha, and that both exist in the scriptures of the Buddha, is a matter for each one to search out and investigate and consider themselves.
이것도 없이 반지 무슨 버릇 많잖아. 냠내도 지도 삼바 뭐 땡기 또 뭐는 삼내 뒤로 제일 삼내 뒤로 다 땡기 또 뭐는 하고 셋업 겨위다 주 셋업 아니 수 잡고 심지 되게 하게 땡티 종들라 아니 내게 랑글레사 심바 사버 주바 안다 뭐사 심바 사버 주바 대다 강가 땅에 내 간지 사이네 배 땡기 손동에 너로 가리나다 돌려샤 뱅이 샤기 삼배 삼박이 먼저 제발게 교슴 잡고 삼바 야고 교슴께 아니 교슴께 사도 아니 교슴께 사네 아니 교슴께 단당에 디바데 연나 다베치도 아니 님부터 어디 아니 동반이 공기는 안 당보래 자주생권에 안 당보래 아니 내야 수족을 숭아 자나 되게 아니 시에는 인지 고나자 안데 가르쳐 봐는 되게 삼로 땅 되게 때기 또 이바 이삼 아니 다 되게 친중 다내 메기바 누가 예수님 거네 배랑이 르베 메기와 지가 지금에 삼 담자저샤 되게 제도가 있나 아니 니 뭣도 없이 상화 차를 해서
With this order in hand, the order of these antidote powers, now in hand, it may be brought into one's practice. And whether one leads the count with the antidote power of the support, or one leaves the antidote power of the support for the 4th of the 4, is not a serious matter. For should one begin with the antidote power of the support, then one visualizes the merit field before one and develops the mind of awakening and goes for refuge to the merit field before one. And with the merit field before one as witness, one takes accountability and responsibility for non-virtuous karmas accumulated in one's past, and those that are accumulating presently, and those that will accumulate in the future. All whatsoever, every last one, recognized as regrettable, one confesses to in order to purify them before the witnessing of the merit field. And in this, naturally, arises the remorse over the regrettable non-virtuous karmas for which one is responsible. And then one moves to address them by, best of all, meditating in emptiness, and by, best of all, meditating in bodhicitta, and by meditation in great compassion, and in mantra recitation, and of generous assistance to others in need. And in the event of all of these, with the acknowledgement and recognition that this activity is the very application of the antidote powers to eliminate non-virtuous karmas. And then one is moved to naturally commit oneself to never again engaging in any non-virtuous karma whatsoever in one's future. Now, after one moment of meditating on the antidote powers, we will open for Q&A. Now, in meditation, if one is able to sit in a full lotus position, then this becomes cause for progress in one's meditation. Yet, if one ought to be in the position that is most comfortable. If it's most comfortable to stretch out one's legs and meditate, then sit this way. If it's most comfortable to be reclined and meditate, then one should meditate in this way, because what one is doing is giving an activity to the mind that the mind might be engaged, and the body would just be comfortable so that the mind can be engaged. And then, so too, if you are able to adopt the full lotus posture, the full lotus posture is the precursor posture for the achievement of the very body of the Vairochana. And so to adopt the full lotus position is conducive for this, and one is physically in full lotus, and one's wind energy is in full lotus too. So then in position then, recalling the antidote powers one by one, beginning first with the antidote power of the support, for the antidote power of support can draw up the other three antidote powers. Recalling these, then in a moment of meditation. So here we go, and now meditate.
도대체 이것도 없이 냠내 수도 지다 지도요. 이도 이 말을 이숨 가서 지도는 편도 지고 표현 지고시라고 했으니 대샤는 저한테는 예수.
Thank you. And the meditation on the antidote powers is a meditation that is easy enough, and it should be the case that 2 or 3 times a day, a meditation such as this that is easy enough, one does. And now we can open the Q&A. So, excuse me for one moment. Prepare your questions.
So in our practice, normally we always practice meditate on the emptiness. Meditation on the emptiness means we don't think about anything. But sometimes the Islam also give us teaching to meditate meditate on the power of emptiness. So in our routine life, so which one is most important? So how much we meditate on emptiness, how much we meditate on the teaching like the power of emptiness.
So 남기 아니 동네 검이들 게 전부 찍이어와 아니 닌든 찍이어와 라마 전부 저게 아니 동네 검셔와 아니 송여와 얘네야데야 아니 라마기 아니 님보 톱시 디앙 공그레스 아니 라기도와 동네 검드 잠발라 아니 짱마 젬베 토네 아니 검겹거와 동네 세리데 짱마 젬베 아니 검겹서와 다데 가서 니르코게 말이 니마 레레기 냐네체 아니 체바델라 가기 갸체와레 동니 고미야 갸체와레 야메 님보kop시 아니 곰갸디 갸체와레
뭐였어? 저랑 지와들에게 고야 수니 고송제 아 고야 비나 가르스나 동번이 공도 좀 지양이라 마셔봐서 뒤치교 말해서 동번이 공도 좀 또 동번이 공고의 균진이 코에게 싸워 제약치도 공고요래서 균진 공번이 공고의 균진 코에게 싸워 제투고를 제발라 동번이 공부로면은 제투고 말해 세상 뒤치도 동번이 냐버도 공고를 해서 동번이 공도 일을 마셔 말 동번이 공도 좀 동번이 생을 ten이 공고를 와서 어디 직접 소식 우리 니버들라 다 동번이 공부디 니 무덤식이 냐면은 좀 팁을 해서
Now I hear two parts to the question, and the first part is meditation in emptiness is meditation with no object of thought, thinking of nothing. That's not meditation in emptiness. The objective of meditation in emptiness is to finally cut the root cause of samsaric existence. One roots out the root cause of samsaric existence with this mind, the mind meditating in emptiness. It is not non-thought. It is recalling emptiness that one meditates upon emptiness. And then, second point, the meditation in emptiness is included in the antidote powers.
동반이 고마디 이것도 없이 나는 이것도 니바디 개치쇼 동반이 고마를 와서
And within the four antidote powers, that second antidote power, the application of the antidote powers include meditation in emptiness.
제단다 디데스도 지나는데 동반이 고마디 개치어데 개치어래 동반이 뭐 동반이 또그 공회된 것도 검색 쏘드래 나 이내 아주 셈나가 동반이 고매하기 곰 전부 용야 동반이 두고 또야 동반이 또왜 귤라 이것도 없이 오고 열어서
Meditation in emptiness is, just as you suggest, of foremost importance. It is the main objective of meditation to meditate in emptiness. And for success to be able to meditate in emptiness, one depends upon the antidote powers themselves. Others?
Yeah,
thank you so much for the framework for addressing the obstacles on the path. So for the first antidote hour, I heard the word remorse, and then also the word support. And I just wondered if I heard that correctly, and maybe talk a little bit about support.
나 아니 기시기 좀시 람라 아니 라비 캅기 칼로 낭 아니 나와델라 시시체 아니 드럼시디 아니 람가 라마르 조드 잠발라 아니 바르치 덴조 아니 셀당 셀수 라서버데 아니 성낭말라 취시체 직체 따드네야 마 가르고선세나 아니 님부터 시기 나는 강보데 아니 순심이도 나가 순심이도 즉 거성 드네야 땐 라고 즉 거성 땡기도 내면 라니 라고 거성 때 땡기 된다 즉성
땡기도 땡스 이거샤야 때 이거를 거샤고 무슨 샥삭 유로와 유스도 유들은 땡스 명단 이거샤서 거샤고 유디 쉐바이다 이거샤서 유들은 땡스 명단 지치 요레세 땡라고 디세 나디네 너무 지부디 이 넘버 수집에 톱생이디 랑이 디버사바 이거 모션이 되게 수술 내가 너로 모여를 맞지 이 계시고 자대 어려서 뭐지 수술 내가 누르셔야 있는 아우 땅에 넣어서 지금 와서 쌈 된거로 와 어디 대한테 계시고 싶어야 해서 뭐지
The antidote power that is the support, the antidote power of the support means the object, means the basis where one confesses to that for which one is responsible and acknowledges responsibility for that which is regrettable, as this support provides the basis, the place for acknowledging responsibility. It is called the antidote power of the support. It supports the acknowledgement and recognition of responsibility. The antidote power of remorse is the recollection and recognition of mistakes in one's actions, and for any action that is regrettable, for which one might be responsible, the acknowledgement that it was improper and is regrettable. This is the antidote power of remorse. 인신은 기시기 아니 당보대 아니 당보대 아니 나바 순짐이 또 송송 되네 이제라 아니 당보대 아니 디 땡기 또 되네 아니 장기 잡단
말했다. 이 안에 니들 그게 들려서 말했다. 얘기 장가 동부터 없이 개치 당분에 쉬어야 돼. 니부터 없이 개체를 그차네. 나뭐 순집에도 당부 쉬어 봐. 다 냠내 지도 잡아. 니부터 없이 냠내 지도 잡았다. 가르치에서나 당부 땡이 또 삼부 땅. 아니 막 삼부 땅 그래서 냠내 지도 하던게 이 곧 쉬어야 돼. 가르치에서나 곧 니부터 없이 나는 개체쇼 그 예벌도 참고해 가래서 어디 시에 봐. 어디 라기서라고 하는.
Now, in my order of presenting the antidote powers, the first order, their first order, was arranged by relative importance. And in that order of first importance is the antidote power of remorse. So the first time around, I presented the antidote powers in the order of their importance, and so led off with the antidote power of remorse. And the second time around, presenting their order, I presented it from the standpoint of practice. And in an instance of practice, the order would be to begin with the antidote power of the support, and then which is followed by the others.
So
Did that clarify?
Yeah, yeah. Look about it. That's what
Just briefly to clarify the practice order, then it's support, remorse, application of antidote powers, and then a commitment to future restraint is what we end with. Is that the order?
그래서 아니 잠깐 예바디 아니 냠는 제도 장애디 말했지 이제 그 말에다 아니 담보디 냠는 제도 담발라 담보디 땡기도 되네 남아 순짐에도 되네 아니 근데 쪽에도 되네 아니 라 네바 라르도 또 내려와
단도 동샤당 지샤도 속에 일단은 이 냠내치도 어디를 버디 가나 요소.
That's it, exactly. In the confession and mending ritual, this is the order in which they come.
Yeah. Anything but
Are there others? If there are no others, then we
say that order again.
양자르식 아니 장가디 양자르식 쓴다. 아니 냠내지도.
다른 장가디 냠내기 전에 뭐시가 개출로 전에 뭐시고 해서.
Do you want to hear the order from practice or the order of relative importance?
Practice.
냠내.
아니 문제는 시험이나 답을 땡이 또 세다.
Yes.
당부 땡 세다. 여기 땡 점도 점이 깨 되게 세야부터. 아니 세답선은 뒤 정도 하다 한게 이제 내 너로 시험봐. 아니 마템봐. 아니 마템배 온게 제봐. 근데 내 가르치면 내가 이수가 답을 치고 두고 삼고 굴는 좋아하시고 친구들 체 이버체 나버 수지면 또체 아니 dit다야고 답이 치돌라 아니 동반이다 장주쌤 공부디 동반이 공부이나라 장주쌤 공부이나라 아니 지금 밀려야 편도치는 내가 그 집안 수준 가르치고 있는 되게 체 아니 다마체도 중에 내 제보들 뺐다 왜 줘봐 제 차이니 당연히 이거 되게 샤차이 때 지중에 보면 이거 사람이 소로 통해 이거 사람이 사람이 당연히 남자도 제도 어디든지 제도는 아닌 이모들 사람도 와서
Then in the order of practice, one begins with the antidote power of the support, visualizing the causal refuge. And before the causal refuge as witness, one acknowledges responsibility for all that is regrettable and recalls every instance of non-virtuous action and recognizes all responsibility and acknowledges responsibility for these. And then this occurs in the antidote power of the support. And the need to purify those negative karmas is acknowledged then too, and to ensure that those karmas are thoroughly purified, then one engages in the second antidote power, that is the antidote power of the application of antidote powers, namely meditation in emptiness, meditation in bodhicitta, whichever and whatever, and also including any generous assistance to others, any practice of ethical discipline. These two are application of the antidote, the antidote power of the application of the antidotes. And then in this process, one recognizes that one has one acknowledges responsibility and in the first application, there's no rush. Take your time. And one begins with the antidote power of the support, visualizing the causal merit field and the causal refuge. One acknowledges personal responsibility. Doing this before the merit field, one then moves into the antidote power of remorse, feeling the responsibility for it. And then with this, there is the recognition that those negative karmas must be eliminated and purified. To ensure that they are eliminated and purified, the third antidote power, that is the application of the antidote powers, meditation in bodhicitta, meditation in emptiness, and meditations in generosity, practices of generosity, and ethical discipline. And then this is followed by the commitment to never again engage in non-virtuous karmas. And with these four following naturally one from the other, the four antidote powers are all complete.
제가 누구의 무튼이 마요 누구의 까투야다 단이 못도식이 냠렌데 고고여라 제산이 못도식이 냠렌데 니마르나 소소게 점내 가르치기는 대국들라 냠렌데 니 못도식이 냠렌데 제샤는 되게여라 소노시.
This practice of the application of antidote powers is a practice to eliminate non-virtuous karmas that, if they are left unpurified, will cause pain and suffering. We would eliminate then the causes of pain and suffering, namely the non-virtuous karmas for which we are responsible. And so we apply the antidote powers to purify ourselves of the causes for our own pain and suffering. And then in any action, at any time, any virtuous action, to recall the antidote powers is also appropriate.
이 산지기 되는 거 가서 유자 선바 되는 거 유자 선바 즉 타마 되라 소남디 탐지 세바이 고반토네 이게 다든데 가다 나다 치베 동엘레 시베 소리 도쇼스 어예 제가 말한 것보다 미진하게 담고 깨베 동네 가베 동네 나베 동네 치베 동네 아주 메이베차니 동네 디시나 뉘데요 제가 동네 시디 쮸 투야 되다 님부터 시디 쮸고 되잖아 시베 소리 도쇼스다 동네다 되게다 체네 아니 시버 퀄리티 타베데와 토바쇼스 말데 도스 어디나시 말은 야오레스 다는 말은 되게도스.
And we recite the homage to the Buddha Shakyamuni, and in the final verse of that homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, we recite, through these merits, may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death. And there samsara's sufferings are characterized as these of being born and aging, growing ill, and finally dying. When one is born a human being, these four forms of pain and suffering come inevitably. To correct ourselves out of this situation of pain and samsara, then we engage in the application of antidote powers. And so it is that we would be delivered from samsara's ocean, as it is perturbed by, as we are perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death. So with this in mind, we can close with these
예,
closing prayers. No?
미국 제대는 수술 이거 수술 비교한다. 심지 탐지 랑 잡아 대화 대화 동의 미대가 강말로 이제가 나지 동에서 쇼스는 잡고 했어.
But not with self-interest alone would we recite these prayers, that we be liberated from samsara's ocean of suffering, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death, but that all sentient life, every one of whom is just like me, that they all be liberated from samsara's ocean of pain, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death. So I will recite these closing prayers and recite them together with me, please.
Lume mari gi don do wa ji na re ya we ong ko da ju ji de ma zu be se ra kun du ya jang de yang ge se we che so ne be ren ba ku san lam je jo ye ne jo be ge na ni che so Rangi Chijin Dobe Langi Ni Shuja Sewe Tangwe Taki Ji Rowe Yiji Muba Seje Ni Jawe Jamba Yubin Tenju Ji Tembo Rinjin Shogi Majaba Jabya Nyamba Yurwe Chole Ni Niji Chembe Ira Jeba Yi Pede Deche Sewara Jeba Sho Seje Jawe Mejun Chele Le Ru Chanju Ranje Rembe Yang Tabe Namje Yila Pede Je Jawe Zeba Rindu Jongi Je Nasa Drebe Dujin Duche Jin Kirgin Seje Medan Meme Sera Kundu Jave Ngapa Yi Nanda Landa Java Magyoje Kanse Tebo Jola Juju Je Sujin Jola Zulba Teye Tode Nange Tadu Roche Tashi Yabu Yagu
From my two collections, vast is faith that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds with the mind blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of the path, the complete teaching, and may I please all the Buddhas by practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the point of the path as I have discerned it. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to it all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted boundless peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings have limited adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths, never departed in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the Mighty One, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
Dagi Chiji Sabe Gewa Di Tendang Ruwa Kula Tendang Chebol Jezu Losa Java Yi Tembe Nimbo Rido Seje Kare Rawe Kowe Shinga De Pendang Dewa Malu Chongwe Tere Sewa Tende Yadori Shabe Sidi Wadu Tengi Chik Chambe Babu Jedar Chemba Nang Okundu Sambo Leyang Deshin 대다 구제 제스 날로 치 여와 대다 탐지라도 유소 제베 겨와 탐지 제모와 angla chodu mabade 나제 제외 자워 디구야 상고 제제 라도 모와르게 장주 선조를 보제 마게 바나게 게르제 예와냐가 내바야 오네 공도 배가라
I dedicate whatever virtues I've ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lozan Drapa to shine forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful goodness begins together. Please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantha realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these fruits of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious Tuscan ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deed. May the supreme jewel of Bodhisattva that has not arisen or rise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more.
그치. 인다도 지금 아버님부터 지금 갖고 좀 지나고 나서 이 패사 포부들을 지금 요마를 간된 문제로도 아마 좀 와봐야 되는데 이것도 간된 문제를 안 되네 디제만 딸이 주들하네 이케도 영어제 자 노베스다 케도는 쇼게하고 뒤지데 제름도 네 제가 요마를 되다 이것도 지금 진짜 지금 맞추고 나가나서
Thank you very much, and during the week to come, as in the best way possible, implement just these 4 antidote powers in your practice. And then this Thursday there isn't the Dharma lecture, because on this day we celebrate Jetsong Kappa. It's Jetsong Kappa Day, Gandeng Amchu, and there's a program at Tank, and so we won't hold a program here. And then on the 10th of December, on the 10th of September, we celebrate also the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Sorry, on Jetsong Kappa Day, this Thursday, there's a program here at 7 to 8. On the 10th of December, we celebrate His Holiness the Dalai Lama is receiving the Nobel Peace Prize with a program at TANK, the Tibetan Association of Northern California. But during this time, when there are no Dharma lectures, continue to practice the 4 antidote powers.
예, 둘째는 지금 제가 지금 필요지만
Thank you very much. And if you have time, then you can join us for a meal outside, and might all be auspicious for you.